This is a 1997 Suzuki GSXR750 and is arguably one of the most iconic of the Gixxer legacy, being part of the 5th generation SRAD line. With a true emphasis on performance, this bike packed technology like a twin-spar aluminum frame and ram air induction system, both of which have been used on the GSXR line ever since. That performance is cool and all, but only when the bikes actually run, and that's where this story begins. This bike came to us with a no-start condition, with the presumption of the carburetors being dirty and just needing a rebuild. Well, after realizing the bike wouldn't start using starter fluid, we dug a bit deeper and found the engine to have very low compression across the board, which is where this video picks up. So sit back and watch us diagnose and repair this iconic machine. Okay, the Gixxer is on the stand, and now it's time to dig into this thing. So Seth is going to go ahead and pull the rack of carbs off. We have to get the fairings off of this thing because we need to get a wrench on the engine and confirm timing and such. So one thing I have noticed, obviously a lot of the hardware in here has been touched. So like there is evidence of a wrench or an Allen key being on these valve cover bolts. So there is evidence of this valve cover being off. Now this could be a couple things. Like what do you think the underlying issue might be?
It could be someone got it after it sat for a while and wanted to do a tune-up, and they decided they would check the valves and make sure everything was in spec, and maybe they did it incorrectly.
Perhaps. That's kind of what I was thinking, just as evidenced by the hardware there. Remember, it's low on compression. It's not like it has one cylinder that's down. They're all even, but they're all very, very low. So I'm kind of suspecting either very tight valve clearances, allowing blow-by, or perhaps something wasn't adjusted right. Maybe it did mechanically skip timing, and we have something off there. But we have to dig in. Hopefully, it's not too bad.
We can hope.
We can hope. The cool thing was, the parts Horde provides, we have a bunch of service manuals, and sure enough, GSXR750. So this is perfect. So we're gonna utilize that to get all our information for this. Now, as we get going with this, I do want to apologize that I don't have the normal clips that I would in the beginning of the video, such as the compression check. This actually wasn't supposed to be a video at all. But I figured since we're going to be digging into a really cool bike, I wanted to take you guys along for the journey and help showcase how we actually diagnose a problem and come up with a solution to actually get the bike back on the road. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy. All right, the carbs are off of this thing. We're looking down the throats. These things look great. The most nifty thing ever is what? Show us.
There's a hole in the frame specifically for accessing the intake boot clamps, and they are clamped in unison.
Yeah, so you run a screwdriver through the frame. That is just awesome.
Most efficient carburetor removal ever.
So you just pulled the bolts out of the valve cover, and this is ready to come off.
Ready to go.
All right, I don't know if we'll be able to visually see anything wrong, but I don't know.
Oh, should be like no lobes left on the cams.
No, yeah, that would suck.
Fine, you can stay there.
So it's going to be hard to tell. We're going to actually have to put a feeler gauge in there to see where everything's at, and then we have to inspect the actual mechanical timing. But, yeah. Let's dig in.
Let's.
It's too good.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Oh, it's a guh and a ooh.
Ooh, yeah.
is a 15. Okay, the engine is rotated in the correct position, and now Seth is going to check the intake cam clearance. So that is going to be on number 2 and number 4 for this position. Such focus.
Okay, not too tight.
Which one was that?
That was 0.1. 0.2 does not fit.
So go, no go. So that's, we know that we're at least within the window there, just to move on. It could be optimized perhaps, but we know we're in the window.
So that's the first one. And there's this one. We have minimum clearance on that intake. We are not beyond maximum.
Okay. And then 4. I'd argue this is almost easier to check the clearance on than a CB750.
It's not bad.
Because those valves are buried way in there.
We are not within minimum on this one.
Okay, so the 0.1 will not go in.
Not for that one. Let's
Okay.
check the other valve. That one does go. Other one does not.
Okay. All right, let's double check that one real quick. So if an intake valve is a little bit too tight, or an exhaust valve, basically at the times where it needs to build compression, that valve is not going to be all the way closed, meaning it will come back out of the intake or back out of the exhaust. Now we are going to follow this up with a leak down test.
Yeah.
So it's too tight.
Yep.
Okay. All right, now we're going to check some other valves and we'll just keep doing this. Okay, so our mechanical timing does appear to be correct. The notches in the cams, you can see down there, are in the correct spots per the manual. So, I don't know. I was kind of hoping they wouldn't be.
Me too.
Okay. I'm in the mirror. All right. That's got a lot of like stiction.
Stiction.
Yeah, like
Interesting.
The natural like friction to spin it.
I'll allow it.
Almost like squeaks. All right, here's our max setting. And here is cylinder 2. Wham. Wham. Okay, cylinder 1. So at least these 4 valves are way too loose. So either they're potentially bent and that's holding the valve down, creating a bigger gap, or they were set completely wrong or something.
Sadness.
Okay, we're gonna do a leak down test. This is gonna be cylinder 1. I guess I will hold on regardless. Now the purpose of a leak down test is to diagnose a little bit deeper where your underlying issue may be with compression loss. So what we're doing here is we're putting each cylinder on TDC on the compression stroke, meaning all of the valves are closed. We're applying pressure within the cylinder. Seth is going to be holding a wrench on the end of the crank, making sure it doesn't rotate. And what we're doing is we're listening for any leakage of that air that we apply. So if you hear it coming back through the carburetor or the intake manifold, you know that it's an intake valve. If it's coming out of the exhaust pipe, you know it's a leaky exhaust valve. And if you hear it within the crankcase itself, say through the PCV system, it could be ring blow-by. Now, if you wanted to go a step further, you could also listen within the cooling system. You might hear some bubbles if it's a really bad head gasket leak, but that's exactly why this test is very critical to help go further in the diagnostic process. Okay. If I put my hand on the intake, hold it there. It's pressing by the intake valves. Like I can't hold it on, it just keeps bleeding out.
It's pushing past you?
Yeah. So that tells me that the intake valves on number 1 are not sealing. Is that bent? I don't know. Is that just poor valve seal? I don't know. There is clearance on the valve tappets. Seth's suffering right now. Thank you. So I can run a feeler gauge in between the actual tappet and the cam lobe. So it's not the cam holding the valve open. So it's the valve not sealing on that one. So on cylinder 1, what's odd is both of the intake valves checked out with a go, no go. So we're going to repeat the test for cylinders 2, 3, and 4. Okay, cylinder number 2. There we go. There is some coming out of the intake, but nothing like the last one. Now cylinder 2, oh yeah, again the valves are out, like the valve clearance is not related because I can run a feeler gauge in there. So it's not the cam holding it open. Could just need a valve job. It had pressure.
Really?
I think so.
I'm a little annoyed I didn't think about that sooner. You see no bubblage.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
So cylinder 2, it does have a little bit going by the intake. I don't know. I don't want to say that was causing all of it, but it definitely shouldn't be doing that.
No. That is suboptimal.
Stop. All right. Okay, we have cylinder 3 in a decent enough position. Now the right intake lobe, I can't get a feeler gauge into it, so I have a feeling we're going to be feeling a little bit of air come out of the intake side, but we'll see what happens. Ready?
Yep.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Dang. There's your problem. Oh my.
Yeah. So
I was rocketing out of there.
not good. I mean, kind of expected that, but that's a lot. Interesting side note, that one just happens to be fed into this vacuum. I don't think this goes to atmosphere, does it? This probably plugs into something in the fuel system.
Vacuum petcock.
Yeah. So like, it's not gonna move any fuel if it's pumping air into the petcock.
That's valid, actually. That makes a lot of sense.
So that is another issue. It just happens to be that one. Because that was moving a ton of air.
Yeah.
I can see a little rust on that one. On 4. Tiny bit. Okay, cylinder number 4. Ready?
Yeah.
Bad.
Lord have mercy.
Could you see it there?
Oh yeah. Holy cow.
Wow. Well, with the information we have available on what this thing is doing, obviously it's blowing a lot of compression by the intake valves, which sucks. So
Actually, it blows. Actually, it blows.
Technically correct. So the next step for this thing is to just basically take the cylinder head off. I'm going to take it to a professional who specializes in more modern sport bikes and stuff like that. So we don't really know what it is until we go further, which sucks. I can't do like a complete diagnosis or quote for the customer and know exactly what to expect. So it just sucks. And I know it does, but this is what we have to do. So we're going to commence with just taking the head off this thing, and we'll go from there. I'm thinking once we get the head off though, we can probably at least see if the valves are bent.
Pretty interested to see if there's any physically viewable differences between them.
Yeah, like if there's any like damage or anything or whatever. So another person said these things are very susceptible to like if they sit for an extended period of time, they'll get maybe some corrosion on the valves. Now, I don't know if that can be the case on this one. And also our view is a little different. We drag bikes out of barns that have been sitting for 40 years and they all run. They'll run on like 60 PSI of compression, terribly, but this definitely won't.
No, this is a little bit of a different caliber compared to what we usually work on.
Yeah, and we just have to acknowledge that. Like, this is something that's a little bit above our pay grade as far as like really redoing the head or anything like that. So yeah, we're just gonna take it to a specialist here, and I'm excited to actually see this dude's shop. It sounds pretty cool. But anyway, we're going to get started.
You know what would really suck?
Don't say it.
If I dropped it in the cam chain galley.
Well, I'm working on the alternator over there, and there was an extra spring seat for the alternator in the oil pan of that engine because it fell down in the gap of that thing.
And right here, I know we've gotten some questions and interest in it. This is a thumb wheel, and it's a fantastic little tool because it's got a little bitty ratcheting mechanism in there, and it makes for some really nice and efficient removal of fasteners that have already been broken free of their torque, but you still want to remove them with some precision and accuracy.
And it's a satisfying little tool to use.
Very satisfying.
That's what she said. I'll edit that out.
Thanks.
Okay, it is time to crack this thing loose and pull it off. And actually there's already an air gap down here. You could hear the gasket decompress. So I don't think this will fight us too bad.
Heck, it might even just pull off.
Nice.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, we're in the dark here. I want to show you guys. We can see light through this intake valve. So Seth's going to shine the flashlight. So he's going to shine it in the intake here. All right. You can barely see it right there. So it doesn't really appear that they're bent. It could just be, you know, like just needs a valve job, which would be cool. Okay, well the head's on the table. What we're gonna be doing is just basically throwing the cams back in here, throw the cam caps on, and then we'll take this to the machine shop and they're gonna tell us what's wrong with it. I'm hoping it's just needing a valve job.
That would be nice.
Yeah. But for now, Seth is getting this thing kind of sealed up, sprayed the bores down, and I don't know how long it's gonna be sitting, but just in case, you know, you just want to take some extra precautions here. Amazingly, we actually received the head back in just over 2 weeks, which is much faster than we expected. Huge shout out to Rudy at QuickTime Motorsports for the solid work. As far as the head is concerned, what Rudy found was basic carbon buildup and some corrosion causing the valve sealing issues. He also reset the shims on about half the valves to get them exactly where they should be, and he cleaned the head up, lapped the valves, leaving us with a perfect seal. For reassembly, we used a Wiseco head gasket, as the OEM one was just not available. Everything else, though, went together perfectly in the reverse of assembly. Is the orientation of those clamps disturbing?
No, they're just not seated very good. Kind of all over the place.
The one that came out of it. What do you think about that?
That's one of those high flow filters.
Is it disturbing? So that's just gonna awkwardly hold the microphone there.
Yeah, ASMR.
Lost the magnet. Anyway, this thing looks like it is ready to start up. So of course the fairings are off. We have not changed the oil in it. We're gonna go ahead and get it warmed up and then drop the oil, put the fresh stuff in. But we're assuming everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine.
Of course it's fine.
Of course. You got to talk into the mic.
Of course.
Check 1, 2. Okay, sorry about the lighting, guys, but we have the door open. This is just what happens. So let's go ahead and try to fire it off.
Let's do it.
So we're just using the nurse tank right now.
All right.
We've never heard this thing run.
Nope.
And I don't think the owner has either.
No, he hasn't. Contact.
Choke.
Yep.
She's got to come alive. You're going to notice a bunch of smoke just because everything's going to start, burning off of it. That's on choke? Yeah. See if it'll go off slowly. It's coming. Huh? It's coming. So it's still not hitting on number 1. Probably fuel.
Yeah.
Maybe stand the bike upright and just see if it makes a difference. So it has equal pressure across all the cylinders. Come on, meow.
One of the needles stuck.
Okay, so the number 1 cylinder was still cold. No fuel coming out of it. So it's probably just a stuck needle. We just rebuilt these, so that can happen. So give it a few taps at the end of the screwdriver. Okay, we got it figured out. So we had the bowl gasket on number 1. It was a little cockeyed and actually caught the float, keeping it from having fuel run in. So So let's get that taken care of. Good to go. So we're just getting it up to temp. It's not going to be the most responsive or sound the best just because we don't have the airbox on it. Doing good. Shut up, man. This bike is seemingly running well, but it seems to have a wandering idle. It's really slow to come back down, and you know, Seth and I both agree that it seems like it's a lean condition. Now the pilots have been backed out as far as they realistically should go, and it still has a weird issue. So we're going to demonstrate exactly what is going on. Idle's good. Right here he's got some starting fluid, and he's going to be spraying it on the bottom of the manifold. So it has a dried O-ring in between the intake manifold and the head. So we couldn't have known that before, but yeah. That air leak is causing a lean condition, causing a hanging idle. So we're gonna go ahead and pull those things off real quick and put some O-rings in it.
A few moments later.
Well, here is the culprit. A cracked intake manifold. So that will definitely cause an air leak. So these things have Loctite on them, and the bolts have been hit by somebody. So there could also be maybe some shoddy workmanship. I don't know. What are you seeing?
A lot of sadness.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't even got 1 and 2 off yet, but number 3 sucks. Number 4, I put it right here. I mean, it's cracked right here, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will leak. The O-rings feel okay, though. That'll definitely cause it.
Several days later.
These intake manifolds proved hard to get. It seemed there were only 2 NOS ones for sale on the internet for the price of a small country. The next option was a 97 GSXR750 being parted out on Marketplace, but that ended up being a 600 with the wrong manifold, so we wasted time there. What we ended up doing was buying a used set on eBay from the UK, and those worked out perfectly. Alright, this thing seems to be doing pretty good. Intake manifolds have been swapped on. No more air leaks. Finally. So, got the filter oiled, and this thing's just running as it should. So what do we add on the mix? Probably 2 turns, somewhere in there?
Stock.
2 turns, factory setting. Go ahead and fire it up. little wet outside, so we can't really go for many test miles, but we will be sure to do that. Okay, well here we are on the GSXR, so we're going to put a few test miles on it. Now, we have already spent some time, of course, dialing in the idle, things like that, so I think we have it pretty well good to go. You guys can probably hear that. Chain does have a tight spot in it. I don't know, I mean, it's no CB750. Just kidding, guys. It's amazing how light these things feel as compared to, you know, all the old stuff I ride. I mean, they are light. Brakes feel good. That chain sucks, man. Rideability is pretty good though. How do people ride sport bikes? These things are not comfortable. I'm an old man though. Yeah, we haven't even got into the power yet. Oh yeah, now I know why people have sport bikes. Because they're bananas. So at first you're like, why does anybody like sport bikes? They're not comfortable. And then you get a handle of the thing on the right. And you're like, why would you not want sport bikes? After a few more tweaks, we called it good and reassembled the bike, and we're able to see this icon in all its glory yet again. We don't usually work on sport bikes, so it was cool having this one in the shop and especially getting to put a few miles on it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something. Be sure to check out some other videos on the channel and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.